Parents of Reddit, what is most ducked up secret you are hiding from your children? That I got all these bedtime facts from Reddit. That we don't go to bed the same time as they do. My son was a product of rape. He just thinks I had really low standards in men at one point. My parents told me my sister is adopted. They didn't tell her. She's 34. BTW help, what do I do? That I don't actually enjoy watching Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. My 2-year-old would be devastated because that's our show. That we're divorced. Years before they came along. Spouse and I decided it wasn't working out and got divorced. Years later, things still weren't working out fantastically for both of us. So we got back together. Never did get around to getting remarried though. Adoptive parent of 3 kids, 2 of which are biological siblings and cousins. Found out a year after the adoption that the biological parents were half siblings who shared the same dad. The bio parents found out after they had the first child and proceeded to have another. The kids are now 16 and 13 respectively and have zero clue that they are a product of incest. Unfortunately, their biological grandpa just passed away, so there very well could be a big reveal coming in the near future. After all the acid we did, we thought you kids would be flipper babies. A colleague of mine has a friend who hid from her 8-year-old daughter that she, the 8-year-old, would die within a few years because of a terminal illness she got. After reading a bunch of these, I feel pretty good that my most ducked up secret is that I eat most of their Halloween Easter parade candy when they are at school. Posting here so when my kids are old enough to snoop they get a split second of excited expectation before they are greeted by my saying I do really enjoy having sex with their mother. My mom kept it a secret that the woman I was named after, her mom, my grandma, was stabbed to death by my uncle when my mom was 18. I always suspected my grandma had a tragic death because of how my mom would avoid talking about it, but I didn't know it was that tragic. My son was planned, but after separating from his father when my son was 8 months old and having basically nowhere to go, no way to actually take care of us on our own. Many times I thought about the possibility of dropping him off at the hospital and skipping town. I never did, and he is 8 now and we are very happy. Not a parent but a child. This last Christmas I found out that not only was my mom had already been previously married and divorced, but my dad had a kid before he married my mom. So I have a half brother or sister that I have never met. The real kicker was I found it out from my new sister-in-law who had someone did some digging. Found out, assumed that I must already know and brought it up out of the blue on Christmas Eve while we were baking cookies. I have a copy of Grand Theft Auto hidden behind some books on a shelf. I'm working out how to explain that the chicken we eat is the same as the kind of chickens that live on a farm. There's tuna in the fridge, but no matter how much he meows he can't have it because I know he'll just sniff it and meow for something else. That I've been changing every clock in the house on New Year's Eve to 3 hours early. At 9 PM we celebrate the new year, then hang out for an hour. He thinks he's breaking every rule and has a great time. Now that he's turning 11 this will never happen again. With phones and being somewhat smarter. Lol. Before I found out I was pregnant with my first child, I took a ton of pills. I think it's the closest I've ever come to suicide. I had always dealt with anxiety and depression. I feel like the extra hormones put me over the edge. I found out about a week later that I was pregnant. Surprise. I was terrified the entire pregnancy that something would be wrong with him. Luckily, he was completely healthy and is an incredibly smart child. I've never told anyone. I feel so guilty. I'm the child, 48F, but my father told me my mother was dead all throughout my childhood and everyone in the family, aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents, stepmother, supported the lie. Not because my mother was on drugs or abusive, or a criminal, or even a bad person, just because I had a huge argument one night and she went to stay with a friend, without me. So he decided she would never be allowed to be in my life again. Ever. He wrote her off. On my 18th birthday, she called our house and asked to speak with me. So, I found out the truth. I'm the child of a parent that hid something horrible until I was 27. One day when my parents has a domestic dispute, my dad called me just to get back at my mom. He said, "Do you want to know something about your whore mother? She slept with over 30 guys during our first 2 years of marriage." I just sat down and started stuttering. He said, "You know how people have always said you look different than the rest of the kids?" I said, "Yeah. That's because I'm not your dad. Your mom slept with my best friend and you were conceived. Another thing, your brother, the one just younger than me, Asarim the oldest, belongs to my brother." My mom just bawled in the background without denying it. I just laughed. And then I went into 2 years of therapy. Edit. 1 word younger from you get misspelling. They know daddy works with money, but they don't know it's in the cannabis industry. Legally. My father found out when he was in his 40s that his father was not his biological father. His mother, my grandmother, literally cheated on her husband with the milkman. My daughter was conceived at work, on airport property, in the back of a ducking Ford Focus, while we were waiting for a med flight to land. She knows nothing about this but tells me she wants to be a pilot when she grows up. It's not ducked up, but my daughter doesn't know I'm an atheist. She goes to a Christian private school. Going to be an interesting conversation when she is a little older. She is starting to put it together. She just asked me the other day that why does her mom say a prayer for Jesus before bedtime and I say the Green Lantern oath instead. I'm hiding a lot of things. I used to be a stripper for 10 years. Growing up in an abusive house. I partied hard and used to be part of Nick and Montreal club scene. That I was kidnapped and taken to another country. There's a lot of things. Now I'm just a boring accountant mom to everyone. No one has any clue what I've been through. Crazy what your kids don't know about you. I'm a surrogate parent to my 2 siblings. The most ducked secret I've had to keep is that, while both our parents are abusive, my father is the true reason why they're messed up. He's insanely sneaky and manipulative. He's cheated on my mother for years, other women, gaslighting her into believing she's crazy. The kids don't know because they're kids. They think our dad is an angel. Grandpa's not their grandpa. I didn't find out until I was 30 that my dad adopted me and my mom was married to someone else when I was born. My 15-year-old was looking at those DNA kits in the store. I wonder what surprises it would find. Oh, more than you think. Sweetie, I'll tell them someday. Just not where what the right time is. Then again, that's what my parents told me when I asked why they never told me about bio dad until he reached out to me and blew their secret. That I am, in fact, a methodica. Not my child, nor is it really ducked up, but whenever my nephew is over I tell him that the beer in the fridge is forbidden soda. Our daughters are both from IVF. Older daughter was conceived 2 years after youngest. Younger daughter frozen for a number of years as embryo, making the older one biologically younger than the younger one. My dad's biggest secret is that he smokes pot sometimes. He was teary-eyed when he told me because he thought it would make me think less of him. To be a dirty pothead, in his eyes, like, homie, sit down and let me pack you a bowl, we good. I'm the child. I recently found out about the murder-suicide attempt my great-grandmother tried to commit on her family. Her daughter, my grandmother, survived the attack and some years later moved to Canada as a teen and eventually got married and had my dad. Pretty haunting. My dad cheated on my mother while she was going through cancer treatments. My mother asked for a divorce. He said go and take the kids. Every Valentine's Day I would receive flowers from my dad and get so happy. My mom would smile and nod and get excited with me. I would call him and thank him. He never sent me flowers. It was my mom all the years. Same thing with birthday cards and Christmas gifts from him. They were never from him. My mom just put his name on them in similar handwriting. Went as far as writing return addresses on mail too. My mom was a superhero of a single parent. We hit the lottery for $12.5 million and nobody in our family, including our children, has any idea. Besides us and the government. The only other people who know is an attorney we hired to keep our identities private as well as an accountant. We have kept our lives pretty normal as we both work, so there looks like there's an income coming in as we both enjoy what we do and didn't want to have anything change drastically. We just didn't want to ruin our relationships with everyone or spoil our kids as we have it safely invested for their future assist, but not until they establish themselves on their own without any idea that there is a safety net. We support numerous charities. It's a blessing to win, but a bigger blessing not to be destroyed by money. Obviously this isn't my real name, which would defeat the whole purpose. I hope my parents aren't on here on this post. I'm not the parent, I'm the child, but my family kept it a secret that my brother was a child molester and that my grandpa had raped my mother and threatened to kill us grandkids. I found out because I told my sister that my brother had molested me and she told me about the rest. We were raised having a relationship with them like they were normal human beings. It's absolutely disgusting. I'm the child here, but my parents hid from me for over half my life that I actually had a twin sister, but she had died at birth. Apparently even at the age of 2, I knew I had a sister without anyone telling me. Then throughout my childhood and early teen years, I would always pretend my imaginary friends or my actual friends were my twins. It all made sense when my mom sat me down a few years ago and told me my twin sister had died at birth. Sad it. I'm an only child too, so that doesn't really help me not feel bad. I never actually took his nose. It stayed on his face the whole time. In fact, it has never once left his face, even though I have told him that I took it countless times. I even showed him the tip of my thumb as evidence of the theft. Sorry you had to read that. But it feels really good to come clean. Edit. Thanks for all the responses. Awesome. I will tell him the truth eventually, but have to make sure mom is on board. 2. For those of you condemning me, your words weigh heavy, but honesty, much like a fire at the circus, is intense. That she can't have a relationship with her grandfather because he is a pedophile and I would never trust him. The rest of my family maintains a relationship with him and leans on me hard to open up communication because family comes first. They are absolutely right. My family does come first, which is why my daughter won't ever have to have a relationship with him. Edit. He has molested, raped multiple members of my family and I only found out when I was pregnant with my daughter. Without going into too much detail, he also has a mental illness and I've been told that I need to let him have a relationship with my daughter because he's sick and couldn't help it. I am the child, but my dad waited till I am grown up to tell me that my mom gave me a lot of sleeping pills when I was a little child, so she could leave me alone at home to maintain her relationship with her lover while my dad was working in another country. That cleared up many things. Edit. Thanks for everyone wishing me well. I really appreciate that. I am doing well and it doesn't affected me. Beside that, I don't remember much about my childhood, but I didn't suffer or whatever. Meanwhile, I am dealing with depression and anxiety since a few years, but I am not sure if this links to the drugging. But meanwhile, I am pretty good at being depressed, to be honest, haha. Otherwise is my life really good. I want to clear up that I am in okay terms with my mom. She learned from her mistakes and I forgave her. I just don't forgive her that she did my dad so dirty. My dad is the greatest person I've ever known and he deserves to be happy. My daughter knows that her grandparents are getting a divorce. She doesn't know that it's because Grandpa, 72, decided to knock up a 23-year-old. We will talk about it once she's older, but I don't want to normalize that relationship for a pre-adolescent. Edit. This is my father-in-law. He's definitely not rich. In fairly impressive shape for a dude pulling social security, and I am happily ignorant as to the status of his erections. It's a small town story with a ducked up single mom and an old man that hasn't experienced much emotional growth since being drafted for service in Vietnam. These people would never end up together if they were emotionally healthy and didn't have control issues. I'm definitely going to do my best to explain to my daughter, but she's 9 and emotionally overwhelmed by the very idea of the divorce. When she comes to me to talk about it, having processed the idea, then I will explain the situation more fully. My husband has already told his dad that our family and his new family won't be getting together for a barbecue anytime in the foreseeable future. Edit 2. A lot of you dudes are assuming a lot about 23. I would remind you that we are talking about small town, single mama, daddy issues. Rural Deep South. Grandpa Ducking 23. Y'all are a bunch of optimists. Update. First of all, thank you again for all the many kind words and the show of support. My wife and daughter picked me up earlier this afternoon. We opted not to video the moment as it felt impersonal and we just wanted to truly enjoy each other's company as we soaked in the monumental occasion. I definitely cried more than my daughter did. Over the course of the day she became more and more excited and exclaimed, "I can't believe you are coming home. It has been a fantastic day." Not really ducked up but still a big secret. I've been living 1/2 hours away from my wife and daughter for the past 11 months. Every time I talk to my daughter she asks, when am I coming home? Well, little does she know that next Friday, when her and her mom come for what she thinks is just a weekend visit, they are actually coming to pick me up for good. Thanks everyone for all the kind words. To clarify a few things, my move was medically related. I got shot when I was 13 and this is in no way related to that. I am a social worker by trade but have not worked in the field these past 11 months due to my situation. I actually did an AMA about it a few years ago. My wife and I did get divorced and yes, we did co-parent. However, recently we have decided that the truth is we should have worked harder on being together and are giving it another go. I call her my wife because I never really stopped thinking of her that way. I mentioned being shot because people were checking my post history and seeing that I had been shot, but not that it was when I was 13. People were wondering if that is why I had been away. I want to thank everyone for the incredible show of support and compassion. For all of the kind words. I would especially like to thank those who shared their personal stories of similar circumstances. Thank you for the gold and everything else. Honestly, I am unable to properly express how your words brightened my day and will continue to provide encouragement. I promise you all that I will post an update